This is TWiT.
Intel was going to have something they were calling Innovation Day, which I bet they regret now. That they've had to. Innovation is going to have to wait till next year, folks.
Not today, folks.
It's not happening this month. I believe it was going to be in San Jose or or Palo Alto or something.
One of the Silicon Valleys
in September. Yeah, one of those. Yeah, in San Francisco Bay Area. Obviously, their recent financial report wasn't fantastic. They revised their outlook for the coming year. Layoffs, cost cutting. It's not a good look for them to spend a bunch of money on something like this now. And, they have other little events that they are a part of throughout the year. And, we'll see. So tentatively, they're saying we're still going to do an Innovation Day. It will be in 2025. They haven't set a date or even a season for that. And of course, as Richard mentioned, they're launching Lunar Lake within a couple of weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And then Arrow Lake.
You really should do that at events, it's a thing. The whole point about doing the layoffs is to have the funding to continue the marketing, that it sells the product, that keeps you a company. What are you doing?
I know. Well, yeah. I mean, so one of the things that contributed to their financial difficulties is they fast ramped Lunar Lake, right? This came together much more quickly. The typical Intel cadence would have been, this probably would have happened 3 years down the road-ish. And they would have iterated on Meteor Lake, because of the need to get up to speed on MPU, especially.
So they did a double talk then, right? Like they revised architecture twice rather than changing densities.
Yeah, and as is the case with cars or anything else, when you drive it over its accepted limits, things don't always go well. So in this case, they had to overspend to make this happen, and.
I would think just like extra shifts and things. You're just pushing people to do more in less time.
Yeah, they didn't really break it down, but yeah, I mean, but the thing we see, the thing I brought up multiple times, is the fact that Meteor Lake, which was such a radical departure from the previous gen, which was the 12th and 13th Intel Core chips, is now an orphan, right? It's a one-off. They're not doing that again.
You don't see Lunar Lake as a revised version of Meteor Lake?
No, it is as radical of an architectural change as Meteor Lake was compared to what's
so they ditched the same way they ditched the P4 and revised the P3 into Duo. Mm-hmm. They've gone, okay, that was the wrong way. Yeah. We're going a different way.
Yep.
Yeah. So all the guys holding Ultras are a little upset right now.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, my experience with these chips has been kind of mixed, frankly. But then again, most people don't really care or think about this stuff. My only concern would be that in the rush to move on, we've left these things hanging out there with, not necessarily vulnerabilities, but inefficiencies maybe that won't be patched, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
For example, I'm sorry.
You presume they're still going to stick with the maintenance on the chipset and so forth. Like they're not really ditching it.
Well, I mean,
you remember what happened when they did the whole RAM bus SRAM thing, where they literally said, we're going to send you kits to really fix the motherboard.
Sometime I hope to have this out by now, but sometime soon, in the next few days, I'll have this review out of that HP EliteBook 1040, which is a Meteor Lake based system. It's very similar internally, in fact, nearly identical internally to a HP laptop I reviewed a few months ago that had lots of problems, right? And they fixed a lot of the reliability issues, HP did, but they didn't fix the battery life problems. So this particular laptop, actually, the battery life is very good, but you still get that. And they describe. See, they would never say it like HP or any PC maker would never come out and say, "Look, Intel builds crap." So what we do is we fix that crap,
right?
And then we make it so that it's sellable, and then you can use it and not worry about it being crap. They don't say that because Intel's like their most important partner, right? Yeah. So, or one of them anyway, and. They don't say that. They would never say that. But what they did describe in great deal was all the work they did on this one computer to create something called, like a new form of hibernation. They added new sensors to it so that it can detect being in a bag, detect when you're around. If the laptop lid is closed, it does all this extra stuff. And the idea is that it's in a very, I think they've done what they can do. I actually think the work they've done is pretty impressive, but it's not an elegant system architecture like you have with ARM. So I like to talk about how, open the lid, every day I smile, thing comes right on. That's not what happens with this laptop, but they're trying to get to something that's more consistent and reliable, and can emulate that in some ways, and
I don't get the sense that what they did for Meteor Lake was an extraordinary lift. I think that you are getting to an accumulation. Like it's normal to do revs on the drivers and the controls around a given chipset as the new chipset comes out. You just usually have more lead time, right? Like once upon a time, Intel pushed to these vendors sample quantities so they could build an initial machine and actually rev it for a while before the main line came in. Like it's just that Intel's been so far behind for so long. Those samples almost don't happen anymore. It's just like you're going to production, fix it and of course we have the internet now, so fixing in production is less traumatic in theory.
There are kind of general problems with the x86 architecture or whatever, right? And it's interesting
that a lot of crap on top of the x86 architecture.
Yeah. No, but I mean, it's and Intel's jealously guarded this instruction set. They had issues with NVIDIA, actually with AMD, and also now with Qualcomm. One of the big concerns when Windows went to ARM originally, and then when they with Qualcomm for Windows 10 was like, well, you're not emulating this, right? Because if you are, that's our intellectual property. You need to pay for that, right? And so it's not a virtual version of an x86 processor. They can't do that legally. It's they have to do something else. So I just all I know is that it's interesting. HP, and I think it says a lot about the credibility of this company. Has two major examples I can think of the past 2 years, where they've taken an x86 based system and said, look, the stuff Microsoft is doing, the stuff we're getting from the hardware vendor is not enough. So we need to do special work to make this better. Yeah. And one of them, they actually worked with AMD on the Dragonfly Pro, which I guess was only a year ago. It feels longer ago. And they just undermined the power management system in Windows because they had to, right? And then they do the same thing here with this Meteor Lake PC and some other things based on sensors. The idea is we don't want to hot bag this thing, right? So we know people are going to close it, throw it in a bag, go. Yeah, it will detect that. It will shut all the way down. Well, shut down into hibernation. And hopefully what happens is you leave it sitting on a desk with the lid open. It will see you coming with the presence sensing. It will come up out of that deep sleep and go back into a normal sleep. The screen will come on. Windows Hello will kick in. And to you, walking up to the computer and just it's ready and you just use it, the experience there is good, right?
No, and you're just trying to get to a place that other vendors have been quite successful in, where I close the machine, stick it in the bag, and it doesn't try and burn a hole through the flipping bag.
I mentioned I'm trying to figure out what the time frame is for these things to go into deep sleep, mostly with the Qualcomm chips, and I still haven't figured it out. But like this particular laptop, I know if I leave it closed overnight and I come on, there's a little bit of a boot like you used to get with hibernation. So it's not full from dead boot, but it takes in total 10 seconds maybe or whatever it is. But if it's within a couple of hours, it just goes into that light sleep. And so you open it up and it kind of comes on. And it's still Intel based. So it's like whatever. Sometimes it's great. Sometimes it's okay. But, I drove to Washington, D.C. It's normally a 3.5 hour drive. I closed it, put it in the bag. I'm like, hopefully it's okay. And this was Hurricane Debbie, raining, awful. It took 4.5 hours. Checked in, got up to the room, and I opened it up, and it came on. It didn't go into the deep sleep. Like it was fine. It wasn't warm. It wasn't.
That was just because it was being jostled, being in the car, right?
It had a good day.
I thought it was,
I mean, So sometimes it's great, and sometimes but that HP had to do that work. So that's good for them. But it's and this is what I mean when I say like the thing I'm worried about is not everyone does that as it is, and now that we're moving on to Lunar Lake and then beyond. These things are just going to sit out there, and whatever inefficiencies they have, whatever power management issues, if it's a portable computer, whatever battery life problems it may have, those are, depending on the company you bought it from, probably not going to be fixed. That's my concern.
I think it's a reasonable concern. And a conversation going on in Discord about how much is Windows, how much is Intel. It's like, listen, they both have the same problem, which is decades of bolt-ons of more and more and more.
When you have a dog long enough, you and the dog start to resemble each other. That's Microsoft and Intel, or Windows and Intel, right? It's hard to know where one begins and the other one ends, and they've both been, co-evolving. right? And Windows has been optimized for the architecture, for good or bad. I mean, it's the way it is, right?
Yeah. But they've been playing this game with each other for a long time, and both are reaping the consequences of. And it's not like Intel hasn't tried to get away from x86, right? But every time they do, it goes terribly.
Yep.
Right. Itanium wasn't good.
By the way, I never wrote about this. There was a flurry of news over the past couple of days, so I'm kind of backlogged here. But one of the little things that came out of Intel's financial filings, probably in a 10Q or something, they gave up their investment in ARM.
Right.
So they're it's interesting because they have I believe they have an agreement for, what would they have an agreement for with ARM? They have an agreement with at least one ARM chip maker to do fab work for them someday in the future. Maybe it's even Qualcomm, but they are an ARM licensee, but it's like a Netflix subscription. I mean, it runs out at some point, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't know what's going on there. It's almost like they've decided, like, look, we're gonna do a hybrid architecture, or multiple hybrid architectures that are inspired by, as we say, ARM. But we're not going to do ARM.
Yeah,
we'll see.
Well,
I wish them all the best of luck.
The real question is, if they started doing ARM, were they just becoming another fabricator, just another fab, rather than?
Why did they invest in ARM? What was the?
I don't even know. I think it was. I don't remember. I threw the headline aside so I could look at it later. I haven't looked at it, but it was
the same thing. It seems like a minor story.
Yeah, but I do think it's notable, right? I mean, it's not coincidental that, maybe they just wanted to cash in. That was the blurb. If they had just held on to it, they would have had
a little longer,
like $40 million or whatever it was.
Yeah,
right.
And but that's the case with any investment, I guess, or many investments.
Yeah.
Anyhow,
it's always you sell that go up after you sell them, right? Well done.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Oh, Intel sold the stock. Good. Let's drive it up.
Yeah, up it goes.
Hey, it's me, Leo Laporte. I hope you've enjoyed this little snippet from Windows Weekly. If you want to see more and want to catch the whole show, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client or visit our website, twit.tv/WW. And of course, there's links right below me.